But I would have asked why. Why do you continue to support the killing in Gaza? And that's what we're doing. I mean, you can't remain neutral. I remember the rabbi who spoke at the Martin Luther King March on Washington. He had a cameo appearance, and he said, the greatest sin of all in the Nazi era was silence. When you remain silent to the suffering and the incredible aggression against the people, then you are culpable.
Did you cover the March on Washington in 1963 when Martin Luther King spoke?
Not on spot, but I was there certainly, and I was, of course, entranced with this I have a dream. And it's amazing that I think maybe this dream is actually coming true. Although I do think that President Obama to-be needs a lot more courage.
Helen Thomas, we're going to break, then we're going to come back to this conversation. Known as the First Lady of the Press Corps, she's covered 9 presidents. As of next Tuesday, it'll be 10. We'll be back with Helen Thomas in a minute. Uncle, here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Our guest is Helen Thomas, UPI correspondent for almost 60 years now, writes a column for King Features. When I said First Lady of the Press Corps, you shook your head, Helen Thomas. Why?
There's no such thing.
Well,
it's nice to have a title like that, but it's not real.
For many years, you threw out the first question at the news conferences. I wanted to go back to the issue of Gaza. You asked White House Press Secretary Dana Perino last week about Gaza. This is an excerpt of your exchange.
Why is the president letting more people be killed in this situation instead of going for a ceasefire and calling for restraint as they have in the past on both sides?
We are calling for a durable ceasefire. That's what we were trying to establish.
Why don't you call it today and stop people from being killed?
Well, I think, Helen, the strong views are held on this by all sides. We believe that Israel has a right to defend itself, and
do the Gazans have a right to defend themselves?
I think that what the Gazans deserve is a chance to live in peace and security. What President Bush has worked for is a chance to establish a two-state solution so that the Palestinians could have their own state, so that they could live in their own democracy. And that's what President Abbas, who is the president of all Palestinians, has been working towards.
The president did not recognize their election, which was fair and square under international law as observers.
Well, when the president did support the elections, and when the elections were held, I don't think that Hamas was elected because they said, vote for us, we'll take you to war, or we'll hold you hostage, or we'll send rockets into Israel every day. But they won because they were tired. The people of the Palestinians, people of Gaza, were frustrated with the services that they were getting from the Fatah party, which was a wake-up call for the Fatah party as well. And they have worked to try to improve what they could provide governance-wise for all of the Palestinians.
So knowing that, why did the U.S. cut off all relations and all aid to the people?
We certainly have not done that to the people of Gaza. We do not deal with the terrorist organizations, of which Hamas is designated as one.
That was Dana Perino answering Helen Thomas's question last week. I wanted to ask you, Helen Thomas, about Scott McClellan, the former White House press secretary, who became a vocal critic after stepping down, a critic of the Bush administration. I interviewed him last June. He spoke about your role in the White House press corps.
Well, first of all, I think we need more Helen Thomases in the press corps, both the National Press Corps, even in the White House press corps as well. She's someone who's not afraid to ask the tough questions and hold people accountable for the decisions that are made. So I think that's important to state right up front.
That was Scott McClellan after he stepped down as press secretary. Helen Thomas, you surprised by his praise?
Somewhat, having been called Hezbollah and everything else, probably. Well, I mean, I suppose it's the position that you're trying. How can you speak for the President of the United States? I mean, you cannot go off the curve and So everything is forgivable, and you always have to understand what position a spokesperson is in. I think it's the toughest job in the White House, being a spokesperson for the president and for American policy, which is sometimes very unacceptable.
What is your assessment of the White House press corps? Has it changed over the decades, and what did you think of the White House press corps that covered all of the press covering President Bush?
I think they lost their guts after 9/11. No one wanted to ask penetrating questions for fear of being called un-American, unpatriotic. And I think their publishers, wherever they are, maybe Wall Street and so forth, were saying, lay off. You know, we're all Americans and we have to stick together no matter what. So I don't think reporters should, I mean, obviously the ideal is to seek the truth, no matter where the chips fall.
I wanted to go back to a late White House press secretary. That was Tony Snow. In 2006, you questioned him about the U.S. response to the Israeli attack on Lebanon. This is the exchange.
The United States is not that helpless. It could have stopped the bombardment of Lebanon. We have that much control with the Israelis.
I don't think so.
We have gone for collective punishment against all of Lebanon and Palestine.
No,
And
what's interesting, Helen.
And that's the perception of the United States.
Well, thank you for the Hezbollah view, but I would encourage you.
Nobody's accepting your explanation. What is restraint? You call for
Well, I'll
restraint.
tell you what's interesting, Helen, is people have. The G8 was completely united on this, and as you know, when it comes to issues
A
of,
ceasefire? Why?
we didn't stop a ceasefire. Let me continue. I'll tell you what. We didn't even veto. You please get your facts right.
That was Tony Snow. Your response, Helen Thomas.
My response is I was right to press him. I think that, you know, any world leader, no matter who's right and who's wrong, you stop the killing of innocent people. And all the people really are basically innocent on all sides.
Helen Thomas, you were born in Kentucky. Your parents, Lebanese Christians. Your Arab American background, do you think that informs, or how does it inform your reporting?
Of course. I have a background and an understanding of what's happened in the Middle East that a lot of people don't have because there's been no interest. But why shouldn't I project some of my feelings and so forth? I mean, I have that right as an opinion column. But also, I hope I seek justice. And I don't think that I go off the highway.
You have covered, well, starting Tuesday, 10 presidents. You were the only woman on Nixon's flight to China. What was it like to cover Richard Nixon?
I was the only
woman reporter.
Yes, in the print department. There was a one-woman radio and Barbara Walters for TV. So there were other women in that respect. Pardon me?
What was it like to cover Richard Nixon going to China and also his demise?
Well, it was thrilling because every reporter in Washington wanted to be on that trip, maybe in the whole country, because we knew it was a tremendous historical event, that it was a breakthrough 20-year hiatus in relations with China. Everything, nobody knew anything about what was happening except CIA and India and so forth, surrounding countries. So we knew that we would be really writing history, and it was really like landing on the moon. Everything was a story. What the people ate, what they looked like, what they wore, and so forth. Well, I can assure you we had a field day for 8 days.
And now, will you be covering the inauguration of the 44th president of Barack Obama?
I'll be writing a column about it and his speech and so forth, but I won't be doing the minute-to-minute. I will be seeing what everybody else sees, I hope, mostly on TV.
Finally, what advice do you have for young journalists?
Go for it. It's the greatest profession in the world. You're making a real contribution to democracy by keeping people informed, and have some courage to tell the truth. I think it's difficult at times. There are many barriers, but go for it. It's a great, great profession.